Hello, I'm Joanna with Blissful Baby Sleep Coaching, and I'm here with Adi, and we are doing a celebration of our sleep coaching journey with little Benji, who was 7 months at the time of sleep coaching. And this is at Adi's second time working with me. Way back in 2017, when her daughter Maya was 18 months, we first did some sleep coaching together. And then 5 years later, comes baby Benji, and they called and said, "We want your help." I said, "Okay, great." So Adi, tell me what it looked like with Benji when you called me. Like, what made you decide at 7 months that this is something you wanted a support with sleep coaching?
Well, so it actually started even before he was born, where because we had waited so long with Maya, and it had been, like a year and a half of being sleep deprived and in a fog. I had said with baby number two, we're not waiting that long. We're sleep training at 4 months if we can. And I remembered even then that you had indicated the first time around that you like to wait until babies can roll over both sides. And usually that's more like 5 or 6 months. But somewhere around that point, I knew we wanted to sleep train. And then when Benji was around that point of, like, I think he was 4.5 or 5 months old, and he had started to roll over. And he was also a reflux baby. My first Maya was a reflux baby, which led to some sleep crutches and things like that. And Benji was again a reflux baby, almost worse, in fact, than my first. And around the 5-month mark, he also started resisting a lot of the sleep crutches that we had been using, and transfers to the crib were failing regularly. And it was just exhausting and exasperating to spend 40 minutes trying to get him to sleep and have to do it all over again 30 minutes later.
Yeah.
And not know what each evening would bring and how long he would sleep for. And so I think, in fact, we actually reached out at that point. And my husband and I both remember that we appreciated your honesty at that juncture, where you said, it sounds like he's still dealing with some things with the reflux and all of that stuff. And you're like, I could take your money, but it probably won't work so well for you right now. And if you can find it in your hearts to be more patient for a little while longer, and wait a little bit longer till the reflux is resolved, then reach out again and we'll do it. So we took that to heart, and I think it definitely helped us to find that little extra measure of understanding and empathy for him, because at that point of just being exasperated, like, we're done. And then it's like, oh no, okay, we're not done. we'll stretch a little longer until it works for the baby. And so then he got to like the 6-7 month mark. And at that point, the sleep crutches were failing left and right. And it had gotten to the point where we were co-sleeping, but not from any kind of planned intentional thing. And he was wanting to nurse at every wake, every arousal. So I wasn't sleeping at all. So then we reached out, and it was at that juncture developmentally appropriate for him. He was, pretty much over the reflux stuff, and he was doing the rolling over. And we knew that, from our first time with Maya, we remembered certain things that you had instructed us on and taught us about sleep science, but we figured there was enough of a difference in terms of their ages. And that there might be some things that we don't remember and that we would mess up, and it was important enough to get it right.
Yes.
And we had a positive experience the first time around, so we came back.
That's amazing. And I want to say that because I think that's such an important thing you said. So the first time she did sleep coaching with me was when her daughter was 18 months. And then 5 years later, it became evident that they really needed to do it sooner at 7 months. And it's true. What we would do with a 7-month-old is really different than what we would do with an 18-month-old or 15-month-old. So that is a reason why families will come back and have sleep support, not only just for the different child, but also to meet the different ages and stages and the temperament of the child. And also that they knew that the sleep coaching with support worked really well, and they felt good about the process. And knowing that they wanted to feel good about this process too, that like kind of piecing it together or going rogue maybe was not going to get you necessarily to the result you guys needed, as well as feel good about how you got there. And I think that's a really important piece because I want both for my families. I want them to have their child with beautiful sleep habits, but I also want them to feel really good about the process, and feel that they supported their child really well through the learning process. And also, dad, Marty, did the coaching, and he's a physician. And, it was really important that we did it in a very kind of science-backed way, that it was methodical and strategic, because that's the way dad's mind works. And he wanted to do the coaching. He wanted to support his wife in that way. And I think that's also really important, that we did it, that Dr. Dad was the one doing the coaching and loved the experience of the science-backed approach, right, Mom? That was really important to him.
Yes, very much so.
And how does it look now?
And now it looks amazing because we just put Benji into, we do our nighttime routine, or for our nap routine, put him in the crib, and he babbles for a while, sometimes cries for, a couple minutes still. But usually within 15 minutes at the most, he's asleep. And he sleeps for about an hour to an hour and a half for naps, and about 10 and a half to 11 hours at night. And if he wakes up in the night, he gets himself back to sleep. And I'm not getting out of bed. I'm not bringing him into the bed with us. I'm not like spending any time at all doing anything to get him back to sleep. He does it all on his own. And we all get to have that sleep and that continuity. And because he's the baby in family with an older child, it also means that I now have more time freed up to be with my daughter.
Yes.
It used to be that
Oh, yes.
it would take 40 minutes to try and get into sleep. And it's, the same time that I have with her in the evening after school and dinner and all that stuff. And I always have to say to her, I can't be with you right now because I'm busy trying to get the baby to sleep, and maybe it'll work and maybe it'll take me an hour and a half. I don't know. So now it's really nice to have that time to know that I can put him in the crib and then I can go and spend time with my daughter in the evening.
That is what you just said is so important and so beautiful. And that is a concern so many families have. They say, if I have this new, two children or three children, that they lack the time and the focus with the older child because they're spending so much time trying to get sleep to work with the baby. And so now we've recovered all this time, all this energy, and also this mental anguish about whether or not you're going to have a good night or bad night. Now it's like totally predictable and easy, meaning dad can do bedtime, you can do bedtime, babysitter can do bedtime. It's predictable, meaning we know when he goes to night, we know what it looks like when he falls asleep, and we know consistently sleeping 10 and a half to 11 hours. And the same with naps. And in fact, you just told me something before we started our interview about how now your child, who didn't really like the crib at all, what's he doing at nap time now?
He's preferring the crib.
Yeah. Which is amazing because, again, lots of people will say to me, my child hates the crib. I go, no, I can guarantee that your child will come to love the crib. And, he was one of those ones that you were like, oh, he's not going to like the crib. He wants to be co-sleeping with me, or he wants to be on the run, but he doesn't want to be in the crib. And now he's like, I'd rather be in the crib, which is awesome.
Yeah.
So what does life look like now for your family? Because he's sleeping. So one thing you said was, well, now I have time with my daughter in the evening, and it's super great to have that focus time. What else is happening in your personal life, in your family life, because your child's sleeping?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, in my personal life, during the daytime, it's helpful in the mornings, especially, that I can put him in the crib and then start to get myself oriented towards my day before our nanny shows up. So it used to be that, like I'm working part-time from home most of the week, but sometimes from the office, but I wouldn't know what the morning would bring as far as when he would go down for his nap, how long it would take to get him to sleep. Once he was asleep, how long would he sleep for? And so I remember feeling like I wanted our nanny to come as soon as possible, so that I had someone here to sort of palm him off to. And then I could get my lunch prepared and finish my breakfast if I didn't get to finish my breakfast, and get myself prepared for work. And now we actually just changed the nanny schedule because I know that he's likely to be sleeping until 10 a.m. And if not, it'll only be like 15-minute difference or something like that. And during the time, however long it's going to take him to fall asleep, he's in the crib and I can be doing all of those things. So that's totally transformed my morning. It's much calmer, much more relaxed, and much more reliable. And also I can then have the nanny here, shifting that over so that I'm paying for hours that I really need.
Right.
Versus like extra cushion just in case.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and I think also it's helped, like, knowing that naps are not the same kind of struggle makes me feel better about, say, leaving the baby with Marty, with my husband, on the weekends as well, and taking my daughter. I just signed up for like a parent and kid circus class that we do on Saturdays. And it's actually not that close to our house. So it takes like half an hour to get there. It's an hour and a half class and half an hour to get back. So we're gone for like 2.5 hours. And I think before nap training, I would have felt a little bit guilty about sort of sticking my husband with a situation that might be volatile and unpredictable and frustrating. And now I don't feel that at all because, it's straightforward and easy. And I mean, obviously babies are babies, but the nap part, I know.
Yeah, I think that's such a good point. So again, going back to this idea that when one of the benefits of sleep coaching is not only is your child sleeping beautifully, but if you do it in the right way, it doesn't matter which caretaker initiates the sleep cycle. And so then, yes, there's not this burden that families often feel where they're like, I call it kind of like the tit for tat, like, okay, well, last Saturday I dealt with a baby. So this Saturday you need to deal with a baby. And there's a little bit of that tension that goes on inside negotiating, taking care of kids, which is normal. Okay. So, but that gets taken away because you're like, hey, I'm going to be gone at the circus event, circus class. And he's like, that's okay. I know that he goes down for his nap around 9 a.m. and he's going to sleep until 10 or 10:15. So it's like no big deal. Marty, he knows that he can have his morning too, and that the nap is going to be a peaceful time for him. So it leaves you the stress-free to go hang out with your daughter. And it's stress-free for Marty to be home on a Saturday morning. In fact, he probably loves it.
Right.
Quiet house, right?
Yeah.
So no, that's amazing. That's amazing. So there's just so many side benefits that become possible after a child sleeping. Plus you're sleeping now, right? So how's your sleep? How do you feel?
Yeah, well, actually, I'm strangely still tired, but I think that's like a vitamin issue. And just we've got a lot of other things going on in our lives right now that have made us like just feel like we're constantly on the go. But it's amazing to sleep a solid night. And certainly in the first weeks of sleep training, it was totally transformative. I mean, it was the equivalent of, like 3 cups of coffee. It's like all of a sudden I was waking up rested and energized. And it was quite amazing. In fact, I was sleeping in a different room than Marty and Benji. And Marty, I think, was still waking up when Benji would wake up from the crying. And so I remember kind of like feeling really energetic and he wasn't as energetic. And I was kind of like, well, how come? And then we sort of realized, oh yeah, it's because he's still in the room and waking up a lot more during the night. And then that actually also prompted us to put Benji in his own room as well. That's another transition that occurred during sleep training that we were, a little bit hesitant about because he's 9 months and we were hoping to go to a year. But we sort of realized that it was better for everyone. We all got more sleep that way, and we had a monitor and everything. So
exactly. And we again, when we're always making a decision to room share or to move the baby to a different room, it's always a collaboration between the coach and the parents. And really, it's also a collaboration with the baby, because we create scenarios where we can test out if the baby does better on their own or in a room sharing environment. And so we did a lot of testing to determine what was going to be the optimal environment for him. And it turned out that the optimal environment for him was not to room share, but because we got to review it thoroughly before making the final decision, mom, Adi felt more comfortable with it because she saw evidence it was the right choice for everybody, including the baby. And I think that's really important. So everything that we do when I'm working with clients is based on full collaboration. Sorry, that's my that's my old poodle. Here he is. He sometimes coughs. He's old, he's 12, but he loves to be on all these calls. So anyway, so it was such a pleasure working with you again. I'm so thankful that you trusted me enough once and trusted me twice, support a family sleep transformation, and that you now have a very good sleeping house, a very well-rested family what you have.
We do. And thank you so much for making it such a painless experience both times.
And in fact, if you were to meet a really exhausted mom or dad and they were complaining about sleep, what would you want them to know or understand about sleep coaching, or why they might want to get sleep support?
I think I would say, first of all, that things seem a lot more intense and a lot bleaker when you are sleep deprived. Everything is just harder to deal with, to think through, to work through, to find, the strength and energy to persevere through. And so sometimes, people might feel like, oh, I don't even know that I don't have the energy to go find a sleep coach, or like, I can just do this myself and it's fine. But I think that it's very helpful well, for one thing, getting the sleep that you will get with the coach will help put everything in a different perspective, which is great. And having someone to be there as a sounding board and as a coach, as a guide, holding your hand, listening to your doubts and your concerns and your questions of, I don't know if we should be doing this in this way right now, or like maybe something's bothering the baby, or is this the right thing to do? And someone who's knowledgeable, right, who works in this field and read all the literature and is up to date with all the science. It's a really big deal. I mean, it's like when we turn to any other professional for support in situations that are difficult and exhausting and trying, it just gives you that extra wind in your sail to keep going and to start as well. And I think for both myself and Marty, that was the case, working with you both times, that it was just, especially in those bleak moments, or especially in those moments where we were so frustrated and exasperated, it gave us that support and also an ability to have a little bit more empathy and patience with our baby. And that was huge. And I think also the first time around, we had more of this issue than the second time, but I think especially for first time parents, there is a lot of the tit for tat aspect that comes into play with parenting and negotiating. Or, one parent thinks that we should do something this way and the other parent thinks something else, or if it doesn't work, then, you're afraid that the other parent will blame you for, because you're the one who came up with that idea or that theory or that suggestion. And so it was really, really helpful the first time around, especially to have you, our sleep coach, as kind of a mediator to navigate those dynamics as well, and make it so that we didn't mistreat each other in the process of a highly stressful and situation where there's a lot at stake. So I would say I think that was the biggest gift, in fact, at least at the beginning of sleep coaching, and especially with our first experience.
Absolutely. That's what I always say. I say, look, you guys both agree that the household needs more sleep. We don't need to be arguing at 2 a.m. about something you already agree on.
Right.
So what I am really is that neutral party that is helping have both sides be heard and understood, and then collaborating on the best next step that both parents agree upon and support each other on that decision. And we're constantly negotiating between what mom wants, what dad wants, what baby needs. And we constantly are making this a communication every step of the way, every day, on every call is that. And that is why families don't argue or get into difficult situations during coaching with me, and why they walk away from this saying, me and my husband were a team that felt really awesome to be in a unified front in such a clear, loving way that we got the results we wanted, but we end up like loving and appreciating each other more because of having gone through that in a united front. So thank you for bringing that up. That's
Yeah.
really important. All right. Well, thank you, Adi. So great.
Thank you too, Joanna. Take care. Thank you.